So good afternoon, and I'm so glad that you're all here to join us for Loudoun Habitat for Humanity's Tool for Life virtual workshop series. Today we have an amazing workshop, Unlocking the Power of Community. And with us today to share their insights on this topic are three amazing guests, community leaders who are experts on the topic of building community. I'm Therese Cashin, Executive Director with Loudoun Habitat for Humanity. And joining us today for our conversation is Amy Owen, who is the President of the Community Foundation for Loudoun and Northern Fauquier County. I keep waiting for you guys to shorten your name. Ron Campbell, who in addition to many areas of in our community are working, he's with the Leesburg Town Council. And Valerie P Sierra, who is the Executive Director with Loudoun Cares. So good afternoon, and thank you all for being here with us today. Before we get started with our conversation, could you each just take 30 seconds and share with us a little bit about yourself? Amy, you want to start for us? Sure.
Afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting us to join you guys today. I have been in Loudoun County for about 8 years. I moved across the river from Harpers Ferry from one community foundation to this community foundation. And we specialize in building permanent grant-making endowment so that there is a constant pool of funding for nonprofits here in the community. And then to add fuel to the fire, we have worked to build a listing of training programs for nonprofits, and then also programs for donors as well. So that's kind of our work in a nutshell. Thanks, Therese.
No, thank you. Ron?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I've told to wave my hands to connect and make everybody feel welcome. As a member of Leesburg Town Council the last 3.5 years, I've gotten to know many of our communities, and it's been fun to engage and get to know people. Been a Leesburg resident for 19 years, and I'm also Executive Director of the Loudoun Freedom Center, which is a historical organization dedicated to looking at the preservation of African American history in Loudoun County. And not only the preservation, it's the education. So I've been privileged to be a part of many different groups and organizations throughout Loudoun County as we look at history. It's a pleasure to be here today to share whatever pearls of wisdom that we can. Thank you.
Okay, Valerie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Valerie P Sierra. I'm the Executive Director for Loudoun Cares. And I've been in the county since 2015 and working with Loudoun Cares since 2016. So Loudoun Cares, we're a nonprofit in Leesburg, and we service all of Loudoun County, and we get to connect the people who serve in the county with the people who need them. And we get to do that in two very unique ways. We have our online volunteer center where you can go and look for volunteer opportunities with over 220 nonprofits in the county. And we also have our Connect line where we get to connect residents with health and human services. So we're considered an umbrella organization, and we're out to support our community and our nonprofits.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Again, thanks for all three of you being here with us today. So today we're going to talk about community. What is community? What defines a strong community? How do we embrace change in our community? And then, of course, we'll wrap up with exploring ways that each of us can engage in our community. When we were looking at topics, for Habitat, building community is at the heart of our mission. We empower homeowners and volunteers to come together, to work side by side, with the goal of building a better life for everyone. And I think we could all agree that in our current world, we really do need community. And so I'm really excited to have this conversation today with the three of you experts on this topic. So to get started, let's just kind of go with the real basic question. How do you define community? And how can we find purpose in community? And who would like to start?
Sure, I'll jump right at it.
Okay, thank you, Ron.
You're welcome. Community for me starts with a very simple concept of how you fit in and where you fit. Now, how you fit in may define, what meetings you want to go to or what community groups have an interest, but you don't really know that you're going to fit, or that some of your passions may actually be played out. So community first, beyond the family, beyond your, maybe your religious affiliations and maybe your educational groups that you used to belong to and professional organizations, it's a little bit closer to home as you define community. You don't just live in a neighborhood, you live in a community. You don't just go to a local grocery store, you go to a community grocery store. And so as I walk around town and drive around town and been around for a while, I see people find different communities, favorite stores, favorite activities, as well as favorite organizations they like to support. So I just start very broadly with community is where you fit in.
I love that. I love that definition of it.
It's great. It's great. I'll jump in. So I define community in much the same way that Ron does. It's building connection, but I think for my background, I want to include love of humankind. That community directly relates to philanthropy, which can be expressed in so many different ways. But that outpouring of community care, I think, through philanthropic dollars and through philanthropic time, which Loudon Cares sets folks up for, it's a great way to build community.
Yeah, I mean, you guys said it so nicely. I don't know what I can add to that other than my own experience with communities as a military wife. We moved a lot, we had to start in new communities a lot with myself and my kids. My husband go off to work. He had an instant community at work, and we'd be sitting at a brand new home and wondering, okay, well, now what do we do? So for us, community evolved obviously a lot around the school, but it also involved in us getting involved. Because when we got involved, when we volunteered at the school and in new communities that included, 16 years overseas, so other countries, different cultures, and how do you connect with people that, are not of your same, of a different country even. And that's volunteering and understanding what is the needs in the community, because once you volunteer, you start to see what those needs are and you understand what those needs are. And now you have a better idea and appreciation for the people around you and how you can help, and how your skills and your expertise and your love of humanity and love of community can help to bring that together. And so for me, volunteering has always been something that I've done no matter where we're at, and how I actually got started with Loudon Cares, ironically enough. But yeah.
Yeah, and I had similar experiences, not living overseas, but moving in a variety of places. And I always found that for us to get acclimated in a new space, it was about joining the community and whatever that looked like. And, in giving that to your children was really important for me too, so that they now feel very comfortable in, of course they live here in Loudon, but feel comfortable in joining different communities and getting involved and knowing how important that is to making a difference and an impact. So, great. So thank you all. Next question we're going to direct to Amy, and that is, how do you identify the strengths of a community, and how would you foster those strengths for growth of that community?
Well, it is a big question. Do we have an hour? I'm going to piggyback off of one of my favorite grant makers at the Claude Moore Charitable Foundation. Lynn Tadlock talks about a stool, and she refers to it's like a milking stool, on a farm. So this is a four-legged stool that really, for me, defines this. And the first is a strong business community. And if folks haven't connected with the local Loudoun Chamber of Commerce, they are missing out on one of the best community connectors that we have in Loudoun County. And I should disclose I'm on the board of directors. But what does that say? That they've invited a nonprofit executive, more than one, onto the board of directors. So there's a real connection through their business community into the philanthropic community. So I think business is a strong leg of the stool. The second is an engaged you and me, you know, citizenry, being engaged. And that can vary from household to household. It might be being active at your places of worship or in your schools. And if there are no connections there, I just, again, have to put a plug in for the Loudoun Cares volunteer site. The Community Foundation has benefited from some of the very, very best volunteers there. And then I would be remiss in not reminding people that what builds a strong community is that adage that money makes the world go round. Charitable giving is really, really important. And so finding that nonprofit or set of nonprofits that really speak to your values is one of the ingredients that builds communities. And folks may not know, but there tends to be a very lackluster charitable giving rate in Loudoun County. So it's important to put that issue on the table for those of us who haven't thought that through. The second or the third leg actually is government, and a collaborative government, which I think, again, we are all very lucky that Loudoun County's government representatives are very interested in collaborating. And then the fourth piece is a strong nonprofit sector. And all of those pieces feed into the health and vitality of a nonprofit sector, that charitable giving. Another piece that's true for many of the nonprofits in Loudoun County, but that many folks don't realize, is that in part because of the low charitable giving rate, for most of the nonprofits in Loudoun County, it's the executive director who does everything. There's not a stable of executives reporting to him or her to support them in communications and development and PR. So in order to really get it all, every boat to float equitably, it requires strength on all four of those counts.
I love that. I love that analogy. I have heard Lynn use that, the four-legged stool. So thank you for sharing that. Valerie and Ron, on any of these questions, if you want to jump in. And to any of our viewers out there, if you have a question or a comment, you can use the chat box, and we'll take questions at the end. But again, if you have a comment that you'd like to make, we'll be happy to share that with our panelists. So just, again, use the chat control in Zoom to let us know that. Okay, the next question is going to go out to Ron. Community is ever evolving. What are some tools and strategies to make and embrace these changes?
Well, thank you. I'm going to piggyback a little bit on Amy and even Valerie, because I think communities are defined about how they care. And sometimes we often hear that our community has changed. And we talk about then what's missing. If you say, well, it's changed, how has it changed? And people could move away, people could move in, but somehow the connection has been lost. Whether neighbors aren't neighbors the way they used to be, or not as many volunteers are able to be witnessed and showing up to different events, or even giving. So as I talked before about this ability to find out where you fit in, is also one word I say: identify. So even as we grow and expand our communities, and we become more diverse, and sometimes even just, when I first moved to Leesburg, there were maybe 33,000 people. There's 55,000 now. So even growth is a challenge to how we sustain community. But if more people are looking for ways to identify where they fit in, I think there's a better chance to sustain communities even as we grow. The second is I believe people should have a passion to belong. And again, it could be a faith community, it could be a PTO, PTA, it could just be something that you brought from another place where you used to live, and you find that there's a gap. It isn't the same type of organization. Well, fit in, find that passion and start something, because communities need workers. Again, volunteer, nonprofits, and you could probably tell you the list of nonprofits that just pop up because people have a passion to do something and support something, and yet she helps them organize that passion into a different reality, or a new reality of the work that it really does take to sustain and to grow. And then, and I talked about a little bit, once you have that passion to belong, you have to show up. I mean, literally, talk to all kinds of organizations and have regular meetings. They used to have weekly meetings, they used to have monthly meetings, and now they have quarterly meetings because people's schedules are busy. And how do you get people to engage? Well, believe it or not, one of the side benefits, I think, of, if you could call it a benefit of COVID, has made us a little bit easier to engage without having to leave your house and to show up. So even our faith organizations actually report attendance up on a Sunday. And the engagement for many organizations is now global. So we've expanded even the definition of community. You don't have to live here. You just have an identity, a passion, and a desire to engage and work. And that working piece is a sustainable piece, because then people build relationships. So how do we keep community strong? Relationships. Sometimes it's one-to-one. It could be, it could grow outside of that. But if we aren't engaging even with our neighbors in our communities, and we aren't paying attention to what's going on town council about policies and procedures, and it may affect businesses or, beyond taxes that most people might be concerned about, but policies really do impact the quality of life. And so if you have an organization, and thank you, Loudon Habitat for Humanity, sponsoring this virtual seminar today. But the reality is, if we can have policies that look at homelessness and how we encourage home ownership and how we deal with people who might be home insecure or food insecure. And, you don't come to your elected officials and necessarily looking for leadership. You come providing direction for leadership to take action. And so everybody's empowered when you engage, and you want to feel empowered. So my responsibility is to listen to those voices, make people feel more empowered where they are, at whatever level they're at, and so that they will come out and engage. And I think that's how we sustain growth over a long period of time and build vibrant neighborhoods, which builds vibrant communities.
So Ron, that's a perfect setup for the next question that we're going to direct to Valerie. And in talking about what are some practical ways that we can engage in community?
Great. Well, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say start off on the Loudon Cares Volunteer Center. If you don't know where to get engaged, you don't know what's out there. Oftentimes we have, Loudoun County is so good with these grassroots nonprofits. We have a lot of nonprofits that are doing a lot of great work, but they're small and they don't necessarily, people don't know about them. They don't know what they're up to. So I would say first do your research, find out what you're passionate about. So you can volunteer in a lot of different ways for a lot of different reasons, right? You may want to share your skill set with somebody, with an organization. Say you are an IT person, you're like, I want to volunteer, I want to do IT stuff. So you want to look for, an organization that is small and they don't have an IT department or they don't have an IT person. They will love having you volunteer. For me, someone who volunteers that knows IT, my favorite person ever. But you also get people who are like, I don't want to see another computer. I do that all day. I don't want to do that. I want to get paid in puppy kisses. I want to get my hands in the earth. I want to grow food for the people that are, that need it. So there's a lot of different reasons why we volunteer. So I say, first of all, do your research, figure out what makes you happy, what makes your heart sing, what do you want to learn, or what do you want to share? And then I say, just like we tell our nonprofits, why do you need volunteers? Figure out what are the jobs, what are the qualifications. I say that same thing to the volunteers. Figure out what your qualifications are. What is your availability? You know, don't overcommit to a nonprofit and then not be able to deliver, because those nonprofits really count on those volunteers to help them do their missions and deliver their services in a most economic way. So think about, you know, can I volunteer every Saturday? Am I someone who wants to just do events and I want to be able to fit in my schedule, go do an event, help out a nonprofit, a fundraiser, and then I'm happy? Or am I someone who's looking for something a little more? You know, I have extra time. Maybe, you know, you've walked away from a corporate job and now you have more time on your hands and you want to do something consistently every week. So I say, you know, go in with figuring out what you feel like, you know, you want to get out of that experience as far as the time that you want to allot for it. And, you know, shop around. It's a little bit like dating, I would say. You know, I always talk about the Loudon Care Center as like a match.com for volunteers, right? So you have to you got to really find the ones that you connect with, and know that first time you visit a nonprofit, it may not live up to your expectations as far as what you thought you might be doing. But you have to realize that they're trying you out as much as you're trying them out, right? So they want to see what your commitment is and what your passion is and what your talents are. And, you know, and give it a shot. You know, go, if you're going to a food pantry and you go the first time and you're like, that wasn't what I thought it was going to be, go another 2 times. And because you're going to start to feel comfortable, they're going to start to feel comfortable, and then you're going to be able to really make an impact. And don't be afraid to, you know, go to a lot of different nonprofits and try a lot of different events. And, you know, if you are just about dogs and you're then focus on that. But you have to, it's just like a job, right? You have to match it with what you're passionate about, what your talents are, and such like that. And so I would say, you know, look out on Facebook for different events, because at an event, a lot of times you can go to an event, you can support them, and you can learn about the organization. A lot has changed with COVID as far as volunteering. Mm-hmm. There's not as many opportunities because, you know, a lot of the nonprofits are using key staff members and key volunteers to do their services because they want to keep everybody safe. But there are opportunities. So try to think outside the box, you know, try to think of, you know, if an organization normally reads to kids, maybe suggest to them, hey, why don't we do a video series and we have people read books online, or create kits for them and deliver the kits to them. There's always new and innovative ways for us to help each other. And there are organizations like Nest for Us who are still doing food deliveries. They're doing tutoring. Pasta is a youth-run organization, all youths, and they're doing tutoring online for peers. And there's organizations like A Farm Less Ordinary. You can go out and get your hands in the dirt and help them harvest food. So there are plenty of ways to volunteer. And I would say, if nothing else, you know, which, like Amy will agree, this is not nothing else, but, you know, you can always donate your money because the nonprofits are struggling. We have nonprofits that have canceled their fundraisers, haven't been able to do them, but their services are in such high demand. It's not like they can stop doing their services. And so there's still, that's how they, you know, keep the wheels turning. So if you think that donating your money isn't volunteering, I would have to argue with that, because you are volunteering to help. And so again, there's just so many ways to get engaged. Always email me. I'm happy to help you weed through like what your passions are and try to connect you up. But there really are so many different ways through your churches, your schools, just local nonprofits around the corner from you.
Yeah, I think we could all say that COVID-19 has forced our organizations to be more creative on how to use volunteers. And of course, anyone wanting to volunteer, they're needing to be a little bit more creative in finding ways to stay engaged with the organizations they have a passion for. Valerie, could you put down in the chat, just share how folks would, I mean, I guess they could just go to Loudon Cares or share your website so that people could, know where to go and direct them there.
Of course. So you can get through our website. It's hard to type and talk at the same time. Obviously, I can't walk and chew gum either. So you can go to volunteer.loudoncares. I wrote Loudon. See, I told you it was hard to do. I'll do it again after I stop talking. But you would go to volunteer.loudoncares.org. That will take you directly to our online portal, and just hit volunteer now. And you can go in there and you can look at the different agencies we have on there, get to know them a little. They have a profile. You can go on, we have a COVID link that you can click on where people are specifically for COVID needs. So they're collecting, whether it's hand sanitizer, masks, food, diapers, things like that, directly related to the COVID effort. But there's a lot of stuff going on there, and you can create an account, log your hours. That's an easy way to do it. You can always email me at valerie@loudoncares.org. And if you have questions, I can help you walk through it or give you suggestions of who might be a good fit as far as a nonprofit. We're always willing to help make those connections.
Great, thank you. And Amy, piggybacking there a little bit on Valerie said about giving, the great thing about your organization is an opportunity to give, and then you're directing the funds where they're most needed. So do you, or correct me if I'm wrong on that. That's what I always think is, so I know that if I give you money, then I know you're going to find somebody who really needs it if I don't know where to direct it.
We really specialize in personalized funds, Therese. So an individual might start their own foundation with their own charitable vision. So they get to figure out where their charitable vision is. It's very doable. You can do it for as little as $10,000, and you can do that over a period of 5 years. So it's less about moving the money right through. It's more about building a personal legacy that reflects your own personal values. Now, we do have an active fund right now that's our Community Emergency Relief Fund in response to COVID. And gifts into that fund are guided by our own lens into the highest need in the community. It's raised about $250,000. Thank you all who've donated. About 100,000 of that has gone to nonprofits, particularly those that have not or had not yet benefited from state or federal funding that has begun to come down the pike at this point. And the balance has gone to, I'm going to sound like I'm part of the Valerie P Sierra fan club, and in fact I am. Loudon Cares and another nonprofit, Catholic Charities, were very, very nimble early on as COVID hit our local community, and began to accept funding from the Community Foundation to provide rent relief to individuals who were out of work or underemployed because their waitressing job was no longer available. So in that circumstance, what you describe is the case. We have looked around and said, where is the biggest need? And that is a huge, huge need right now. But another program that we do each year is Give Choose. I hope folks have heard of it. Loudon Cares and Habitat have both participated in it. And it's useful for individuals who would like to get sort of a quick catalog of the nonprofits in Loudon. I'll post it. The campaign's not active now. It's a 24-hour charitable giving campaign. It's very exciting because we have businesses who contribute to the Community Foundation, and then we make awards throughout the 24 hours for nonprofits who have hit certain benchmarks. but it's still an active website now. And so if you are new to Loudoun County or new to really digging into finding out about the nonprofits in addition to the volunteer center, this is a great way to go and look at the animal groups or the conservation groups or the health and human services groups. So I'll post that in the chat
Thank you.
box.
Thank you. So we talked about ways to impact through volunteering and of course charitable giving. There are other ways that we can be champions for our communities. You know, one that comes to mind is advocacy, and you guys have all talked about that, you know, getting engaged with your, you know, local organizations to push out messaging. Ron, I know you are our government rep, you know, can you share a little bit more maybe on ways that folks can get involved to be a champion for in our community?
You know, again, as I've been listening at it, and all the ideas and thoughts are great, and I went back and looked at the title of the workshop, Unlocking the Power of Community. And one of the things that I see often, and even looking at our COVID-19 CARES Act funding and the requests, and the requests don't necessarily overlap, and they're not duplicative in the sense of organizations not serving the same need or looking at them serving the same need. But if we look at rent assistance, which is probably the highest need, and then food insecurities in terms of what we're trying to take a look at, how can these organizations work better together? What kinds of partnerships can be formed so we're not either overlapping or spending dollars in similar but different directions because organizations are different and they have different policies. But the power of partnerships working together and leveraging these opportunities is not to be underestimated. So at some point, I think, you know, consortiums are good, but this, in a crisis situation, it might require us to have a different format. And I'm not sure exactly always what that format will be. And government can lead some of those conversations with a lot of our community groups and organizations, but we do have a role to play, not just giving out money. So I like to go to meetings and I like to listen and see what it is that we can do to help groups work better together in the same community. So Loudoun County is one big community. Leesburg is one big community. Middleburg, but at the same time, the dollars are only so much and they only go so far. So I think there is power in partnerships and working together, but we're gonna have to sit down and figure that out. And I think this is where government has a leadership role. We just can't sit back and let it happen and say, well, we don't control that group, we don't control ourselves. So control is not a question or an issue, but opportunity is. And where those opportunities might be leveraged, we can advocate and engage with folks to see what kind of relationships can be developed. So I think that's a big opportunity for us. We haven't taken advantage enough during this particular season in COVID-19. And I hope to get out there a little bit more to do more things in that area.
Can I chime in on that too? That's sort of related, and that is recognition that we have excellent community newspapers here in Loudoun County, and that's an issue in so many communities across America that have lost or do not have that community news outlet. When it comes to advocacy and knowing what's going on with your town council or the county board of supervisors, those local papers attend those meetings and report to us on their events and happenings. And I think that's a really essential ingredient that I hope everybody who's joining us today takes advantage of.
I'd like to chime in as well. I mean, that's a great point. You know, it's both the whole idea of how do we work together? How does organizations work together? It starts as simple as sitting down, having a cup of coffee and having a conversation. It's that conversation on and understanding what each organization does and brings to the table. Because once, rather than thinking that we have to do it all, we can find areas where we can we have our lane, right? What we do really well. And so by working together on those, I can help you do this and you can help me do that. And we need to, and I think the Loudoun community is very good. The nonprofit sector is very good about trying to collaborate and work together. I've seen that happen. I've seen it happen with COVID, with Catholic Charities, very much about how can we do this. And Amy coming in and making the suggestion just gave us the fire that we needed to we'd always been looking for ways to collaborate because we have some great things that align. And it's really just starting those simple conversations of, tell me about your organization, tell me a little bit more about, what does Habitat for Humanity do, other than just build a house. There's a lot of things that you guys do that other organizations don't know. And they don't realize, how can we help you as an organization? And we need to look at it as not as a competition. Oftentimes we think, well, we're all competing. When you're in the nonprofit sector, you're not competing, because really the ultimate goal is to help the community. So really we're all teammates, and we have to learn to work together and towards that goal, that primary goal of building our community up and helping those people who need us. I think if we focus on that rather than on, the competitiveness of it, I think that we could build a lot stronger bridges between all of our, and that includes our government agencies and our businesses, like Amy was saying, all of them, just with that same goal in mind, that we're all here to do the same thing, which is to help the people who need us.
Right. And the point I want to make on this is also about is the communication piece, Amy, I think is important in people awareness. The other part is how we market and advertise, because again, that's not the competitive piece, that's the awareness piece. So there is no single website that anybody goes to, there is no central place where you can find out which events and sponsorships and fundraisers are happening like you do on a Friday night guide, that's created for some communities. So I think we still have some work to develop, some ways that we can partner. And I can tell you, when I started Citizens for Better Leesburg as a Facebook site, and the whole goal was to invite anybody who wanted any support for any activity. How do we come together as a community? And we asked them to share one event that took place on May 31st. And we found out that it got shared over 30,000 times because we simply asked people to share. And the event was the silent walk for George Floyd, where we thought 200 people would show up and over 2,000 people showed up. So I'm telling you right now, and anybody, if you have something that you want a message to get out, I have a vehicle. Our newspaper's a vehicle. Our personal Facebook sites and our professional Facebook sites are vehicles. We have to start using the social media vehicles to just inform other people. I use it for today and letting people know that this opportunity was happening. So I think there is some untapped power that we need to utilize, because I can support anything and it doesn't ever have to belong to me. My passion is making sure everybody gets support. That's the passion.
So Ron, could you share in the chat box the name of your Facebook page?
Yes.
And if you don't, maybe if you can't do that, maybe Julie or one of our tech people could, because I'm not quite sure how to do it.
Well,
so if you could do that, that would be great.
Okay.
Okay, well, we did have a question, and I believe you've all answered this, but let's see if you had any. It was from Carrie, Carrie Murphy, and Carrie's question is, what are your ideas to increase collaboration among the many organizations that serve our community? And I do think we kind of touched on that. Do you have anything else you'd like to add to that?
I saw that question from Carrie, and I didn't know if she meant all entities or just nonprofit entities. But I'm pleased to say that, as Valerie characterized, I see the Loudoun nonprofit community as being highly collaborative. There are certain circles focused on food. There are others focused on conservation. There is one that's broader and bigger, specifically for human services. So those nonprofits do what they can to find that coffee time, as Valerie described, to understand more about each other.
Yeah, I can only see it from the standpoint of looking at funding sources, and probably now more than ever. I mean, I've always paid attention to what Loudoun County did with its grants programs and how it supports the nonprofits, and even have felt that Leesburg needs to throw a few dollars into the pot. But from that point about cooperation and strengthening cooperation, so it becomes less competitive and more service oriented, because everybody's trying to serve in some way or another. So how do we help the quality of those services grow, and everybody is really feeling like their mission is really being fully embraced and engaged. So for me as an elected official, I want to find ways, and I go to a lot of community meetings for a lot of different groups and organizations, help everyone feel like they're being heard, they're being valued, and they're being supported. And it's not, and the money is a big piece of it from a government perspective, but it's also the recognition. So how do we celebrate the things that are happening in our community? And there are probably too many things to have a proclamation about, because we be doing that every day. But that's a good sign. But if we also start to show people and celebrate, then I think there'll be more volunteers. There'll be more, not just, you know, the cooperation, but the feeling. It's a real feeling that we have to somehow endow so that this work is sustained.
So we had another question pop in. And this one may be a bigger question than we can answer here. It's if there is someone in the community that is in need of services, how do I find them?
Valerie can help that.
Yeah.
Valerie can help with that.
Okay.
I can help with that answer. So there's a couple ways. There's more than a couple ways, but one way I suggest is calling Loudoun Cares. We have a connect line where we connect people with health and human services, and we look at them holistically. So they may be calling for one thing, but we have a conversation and what's gotten you to this point. If they're calling for rent, this is prior COVID. A lot of the rent we do now, we know is because of COVID, but prior to that, we find someone has lost a job, someone's moved in, someone's moved out, someone's gotten ill. There's always some, I like to call it a series of unfortunate events that happen. And we try to look at how we can help in as many ways as possible. So definitely calling us, and you can call the information referral at the county. They are helping to connect people with their agencies and different things like that. They also have on their website, and you can go on there and look for other resources. And you can check with your faith community. A lot of the faith communities, if you're a part of a faith community, have a benevolence department, which they know of. Some of the, if you're looking for food or they have food, some of the churches have budgeting classes or different counseling classes and things like that. We have a lot of services that are provided. Not as much as we would like to see. It's hard to lasso those all in under one place, but there's those major areas where you can call and they can give you a good direction. If you're looking for something much more specialized, that takes a little more digging, but you know, we're willing to do that and try to help you out.
And someone put up here the Loudoun Cares referral helpline.
Yes.
So I see that in the chat box. So that is a good place to start. I know
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Anyone else have anything they wanted to add to that? Okay. Well, wow. Thank you, all of our viewers. Thank you to our panelists. You know, it's now time to get out there and to be the change and to help build community. And one of you said this, you know, it's really about caring about each other. And, you know, during this time, that's so important that we take the time and we care each other and respect each other. And of course, that is, you know, key to having a great community. And I do think we're very lucky here in Loudoun County to have a caring community. Could it be more? Of course. And that is our goal to try to help, all of our goals to try to help folks realize that and to work together to show they care. Again, thank you, all three of you, for being here with us today. This was recorded and it will be placed on our Habitat website. You can go there to see all of our past workshops that we've had over the last several months. And we've got a really robust schedule coming over the next several weeks. So go there, check it out. And we'd love to see you all again here Thursdays at 2 o'clock. So thanks again for everyone, and everyone have a great week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.